established as per highly placed sources in Intel, and this is what they're telling us. The attack in Doda is part of Pakistan's new strategy. There is a reason why Intel believes that this is happening. Aggressive attacks on forces is part of the larger ploy. It's part of Pakistan's nefarious design. And there are several reasons as to why we're witnessing this. Almost 50 foreign terrorists are ready to strike. So that's the kind of conspiracy that we're seeing on part of Pakistan. ISI also under pressure with the thinning of OGW network. Remember, the forces have pretty much been able to decimate the OGW network, especially in the Kashmir Valley, and that's why we're seeing this kind of a shift to the Jammu region. ISI has bid to use challenge of deploying forces in Jammu region. That's another strategy that is play on part of these terrorists. More deployment in Jammu region to fight back challenge. This, of course, is part of also what the security personnel, the security agencies are now aiming at. They're going to be reworking on their strategy on how to tackle this kind of a terror threat. Army, CRPF, police in action mode to neutralize terror groups. So it's going to be a joint operation on part of not just the Indian Army but also CRPF and the Jammu and Kashmir police. And we've more often than not see how most of these encounters, most of these terror operations are fought together. It's mostly joint operations on part of the Army and the Jammu and Kashmir police. Let me go across to Anand Narsimhan joining us on the phone line with more details. Anand, it's very clear that there is a nefarious design that Pakistan is following. Tell us a little bit about why and how and what, highly placed sources have been able to tell us on what we make of this overall pattern, the shift that we're seeing on part of these terrorists fully receiving Pakistan's backing.
Well, what our Group Manager Security Manoj Kumar Gupta has been able to glean is the fact that there is the presence of foreign terrorists in this entire Jammu region, and the theatre of action for the enemy has shifted from the Kashmir Valley to the Jammu region. One aspect that we must also, that should not escape our attention, is the fact that when the Reasi bus attack happened on the 4th of June, where there was a bus full of yatris which was on target and on radar, the arrest that took place thereafter, one realized that this person who was arrested had been paid money, and for the lure of money he had actually helped these foreign terrorists on ground. So there is the presence of an OGW network which for money is ready to offer its services for these terrorists. They are somewhere perhaps even accessed along the highway and closer to the LOC or the international border, and from there they are taken into the remote areas and shielded perhaps in some of these dhokes which are left vacant by the travelling shepherd community in Jammu and Kashmir. But the fact that they have made the Jammu region their base and they are active in this region is a cause for concern. At present, there are multiple terror groups, which have now combined ranks, and there are different units of these terror groups which have infiltrated into Jammu Kashmir. How they have infiltrated into Jammu Kashmir is one question, because they have entered via the IB or the LOC. So if we have about 200 odd kilometers of the international border, there is about 280 kilometers of the LOC also that we share with Pakistan. So from where they have entered is a question. And of course, to put in or to bring in enforce a security grid like has been done in the Kashmir Valley is difficult in Jammu. Now the forces need to work together to be able to do that. And clearly, if the entry is stopped of these foreign terrorists, then they won't be able to be active in this area. They have also chosen this entire Reasi Doda region or the Poonch Rajouri region because of the fact that in this side of the Pir Panjal range, the forest allows them recourse. It allows them to survive for months on end, staying in these caves and living off the land. And the weather is also not so extreme that they cannot survive even in the winters. Plus these dhokes and these, settlements on the outskirts of the villages allow them to even stay unnoticed. But there are OGWs who are helping them in this Jammu region. From where have these OGWs come? How have they been established there? How have they been moved, resettled there? Is there a planned modus operandi here? That's a big question that these OGWs that have been rendered inactive or ineffective in Kashmir Valley, how are they active in the Jammu region? So that's a question that needs to be answered and perhaps addressed, a concern that needs to be addressed at the earliest.
Absolutely. OGW network in Kashmir Valley completely decimated. That's one big reason. And of course, how we've seen a dilution in the deployment of security forces the last 2-3 years since there's been greater deployment along the LAC. That's another reason why they're looking at this renewed strategy. But let's talk about the infiltration route. Given the Doda encounter, given encounters that we've seen in Kathua in the past, let's talk about what we've been able to piece together. Stay on with us, Anand. This is part 2 of our mega exclusive. And what we're trying to highlight here is the new infiltration route. Terrorists sighted on the 9th of July by the army men. This holds true for the Doda encounter. So they were first tipped off about this particular intel on the 9th. So forces were then deployed to nab the terrorists. So they acted on this intel input, and then we saw a heavy deployment on part of our security forces. A captain and 3 other army personnel, remember, killed. One JNK cop also killed in the gunfight. This gunfight essentially broke out last evening. Close to 9 p.m. is when we saw this gunfight first erupt, and then came the most unfortunate news of us losing 5 of our brave hearts. Jaish groups may have infiltrated recently in Doda. So we have a culprit here as well. Jaish group may be involved. One terrorist group in Rajouri Poonch area, the other entered from Doda-Reasi area. So there are several strategies at play here clearly as per what we're learning from our sources. More terror strikes around these areas expected, and we've been discussing why that is happening. Why is Pakistan, through these terrorists, reworking on its strategy? Why they're aiming for the Jammu region? More terror strikes around these areas, and we've seen that happen the last 2 months, if not before that. Let's just talk about June, July, Anand. We've seen, not just Rajouri, Poonch, but Reasi, Doda, south of Pir Panjal increasingly being targeted. What's the pattern that we've managed to establish through these exclusive inputs? And most importantly, tell us a little bit about, for example, we've picked up how there is involvement of Jaish. Do they then break up into smaller groups to ensure that, their terror plot succeeds?
Well, right now there are about 50 foreign terrorists on Indian soil. There are 10 to 12 of them in the Reasi, the Poonch, Rajouri region, and about 20 to 25 in the Doda-Reasi region. And all of them are active. Like you said, they belong to different terror groups, but how have they come in? That's one question. Was their entry marked? Was there thermal imaging and details that have been shared? Is there communication lines very clear between the army and the para? Because the army is right at the borders in the LOC, then the para comes into play, and then does the Jammu and Kashmir police. There is a network of OGWs also which need to be cracked down upon in this area. And what are they doing? They break up into groups of 3 or 4, and then they plan these ambushes. So even when the para forces and the forces combine together to go into hot pursuit, they are going in a little blind because of the forest and the dense region, and also the fact that it's far spread out. But for these terrorists who are ensconced and already hiding, for them they have the opportunity and perhaps the advantage of ambush at this point. So there will have to be a recalibration of the system, and all units will have to work together. All wings will have to work together like they've done in Kashmir. And that is what perhaps has been the instruction that's gone in from the Defense Ministry, the Home Ministry, that there has to be no corners cut, and there cannot be any kind of lackadaisical approach towards this.
Okay,
so that is the So that is the important part. And as Manoj Kumar Gupta has said, that these terrorists are going to be working towards, they have been tasked. Their task is to come and reshape the atmosphere. The task is to come out and force perhaps a rethink or a redeployment, reduce the forces on the international borders or even at the LAC with China, and try and get them force a redeployment here in Jammu. Because in this Jammu region, the spread is so vast that you will need far more forces or foot on ground.
I'm coming back to you on that, Anand. We want to understand the other factors that end up being advantage some of these terror groups. But before that, here's a sum up of what you've said, and a big part of what we managed to access here on CNN News 18. Let's break down those details. I'm coming right back to you. 2 terror groups have been sent separately, as Anand was also highlighting. So there is involvement of clearly 2 terrorist groups, 10 to 12 terrorists in Rajouri Poonch area. That's one particular group. And if we talk about the other group, 20 to 25 terrorists in the Doda-Reasi area. Doda is where the encounter took place last night. New terror groups in Doda-Reasi area belong to